In this video, we're going to be taking our deployment here to the next level. We're going to be joining this host to the normal VMware environment, which is going to be through vCenter server. So I've deployed a couple of VMs, one Linux, one Windows, and we're going to go through the process of logging in and all that good stuff. So we're going to join that guy to the domain, or I'm sorry, join the host to vCenter. And then we're going to migrate the networking over to a distributed virtual switch to take advantage of things like vMotion and clustering and all the advanced things. So that's going to be where we go from here. So we're going to click on Hosts and Clusters. And right now we don't have any VMs deployed currently. So what we're going to do is, pardon me, we're going to click in here, we're going to say Add Host. And once we do this, we're going to type in 10.255.1.217. We're going to log into the host. We're going to say yep. We have two VMs, a Linux and a Windows 7. We're going to bypass the licensing, and we're going to finish. So now it's going to join the host to vCenter. And once that's done, we should have another host. We'll have 14, 15, 16, and then eventually 17. I'm going to go ahead and minimize DC2 for the moment. We might actually deploy more VMs. I could go in and, as long as the footprint is small enough, we could take the three larger hosts. These hosts each have 16 gigs of RAM. We could cut that in half. And instead of having 6 8 gig, three 16 gig hosts, we could have, if we wanted to, have 6 or 7 8 gig hosts. So we could do that as well. So right now he is disconnected at the moment. And if we log in through this guy, now he's eventually going to become a member of vCenter. But we have to be patient here to wait for it. So there it goes. We're going to go ahead and say ignore, and it's, but yep, that is fine. We're going to go ahead and we're going to wait for him to finish. Normally it's going to, as soon as you've joined it, it'll pretty much take care of itself. But in this particular case here, not sure why it says disconnected here. Let's see here. Disconnect. Not sure why that's giving me a hard time. Let me go ahead and update this. There we go. Okay, that's better. Sometimes it does get hung up and you have to go in there and you have to manually refresh the UI. No big deal. We're going to go over to the networking tab here, and for this guy now we're going to add another host, because right now we've got three hosts now, which is host 4, 5, and 6. We're going to add host networking, and this is going to be a little bit more complicated, because if you've ever seen this done before, because we have live VMs running. So we're going to say next, and we're going to migrate a virtual machine networking. We could do that now, or we could do that later. I'm going to do that later and show you how that works. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, and vSwitch 0, vMNIC 0 is going to get assigned to uplink 1. We're going to assign vMNIC 1 to vSwitch 1 and assign uplink to 2. And then we're just going to go right on down the line. I never bother with the auto assign aspect. I just let it sit and I take care of it myself. And so there we go. So now we're going to go ahead, and we don't have any other uplinks. I'm just going to go ahead and assign that guy to there. And next. And then we're going to have to associate adapters. So in here, this adapter here, we're going to, we can't migrate yet. And the reason why we can't migrate, if on this switch, we can migrate, these are the actual vSwitches. We've assigned port groups. Now on this switch, this is referring to the distributed switch. This is the vSwitch on the host. This is the distributed switch. So we're going to come in here, new adapter. We're going to adapt this guy to the management domain, or the management vSwitch. We're going to click OK, and then next. And then we have to say this is going to be for management traffic. Say next, and then we have to give it an IP address. And if we were to look on, say, host 4 and go to the configuration and click on networking, for distributed switches I use 214. So we can use the same address if we want to, and if we click in here, I've got it mapped to just one uplink. That will be supported. So normally I would do that anyway. So we're going to go ahead and say this guy here is going to be 10.255.1.217/24. Click next. And it says the IP address is already in use. So I can come in here and say 227, but I have to be careful with that because I want to make sure that I don't have an overlapping IP address issue. So if I type in 27, I don't get an IP address response, which is exactly what I want. So I can go in here and I can say 227 and say next and finish. And I can say on this guy here, we're going to on here, we're going to assign a port group. Oh, I'm sorry, I did that wrong. Let me go ahead and reset changes. So in this case, we're going to assign a port group. We're going to say this to management. And then if we want to edit the adapter, we can, but it's already set there. So the IP settings are already in play. So we're going to say, okay, come over here to this guy. We say assign a port group. We're going to assign this to SAN1. Click OK. We go here to VM kernel 2. We assign port group to SAN2. Click OK. Now, because we're moving everything over to the new vSwitch, come over here. We say assign port group. We say vMotion, and then we come to VM kernel 4. And we assign port group, and then we go to HA fault tolerance and click on OK. We go to next, and okay, so it's going to break iSCSI. That's okay for right now. We're going to go ahead and do what we got to do. We can remap it later. It's a lab. I really don't care. So if there's any issues in the network, it's going to the mappings are already pre-built, so it's just a matter of migrating the VMware networking. Okay, so everything's been mapped over. So now you'll notice that all of the host connectivity has all 4 hosts, right? So SAN1, SAN2, SAN3, they've been migrated. If we go over here to the manage and we click on the networking, now everything's been migrated over to the appropriate host. If we click on this guy, then we go to configuration and we click on virtual distributed switches. Now we are all migrated over. It's actually really simple. So we do that and then we're squared away. So now we have the ability, now, since we have, go back to the summary tab, we have the data center storage. If I minimize this, and now for instance, if I wanted to move the window, let's say the Linux PC, let's say I wanted to migrate that. I wanted to go and I want to live vMotion this guy over. I can right click here and go to migrate. Now here's the caveat. Because I've joined it to the domain, I want to go ahead and just change the compute resources. If I've done everything correctly, we should get 3 hosts that pop up. 15, 16, and 17. So it says it won't actually work because the CD drive is actually mapped. So what I have to do is I actually have to click cancel, and then I have to go on to right click here and go to settings, edit settings, and I have to go and I have to remove the mapping for the data store ISO. So I have to click on disconnect that. So then we can go back to just client device and click on OK. So that's going to update that. So now it'll tell you if there's any impact. So as soon as answer question, yes. So just, I want you to disconnect the connection. So there we go. So now if I right click here and I go and I say migrate, again, it'll tell you whether or not you can do it or not, which is one of the things I like about it because there's no guesswork involved. I can say I want to move it to host 4, and it says the virtual machine is installing VMware Tools and cannot initiate a migration operation. So what I need to do is I need to come back over here to this guy, click on here, and go to the console, and I need to go and as far as go to open console. Is it going to give me a problem? Yes, it is. Okay, no big deal. Let me go ahead and minimize this. Let me go cancel this out, and let me click inside of here. Click this window to read. Why can I cannot connect? Okay, that's different. The VMware Tools install is in progress. Aha. So let's see. At worst case scenario, I wanted to show you that one, but I can just show you this guy. So I'm going to right click here and go migrate. And as long as there's nothing going on, I can come back over here to this guy, choose a host that I can move this guy over to, which will say compatibility check succeeded. So now I can go next, and I can go ahead and vMotion this over. I'm not going to do that right now because I actually want to install VMware Tools. And we're going to say mount it because the OS has been installed. And now it's going to go ahead and attempt to launch. So I'm going to go ahead and click inside of here. Okay, this is, I got to go over to here. Let me close out this. Click on here. Why is that? That's different. Let's see. Can I at least let me try to vMotion. Next, and this is going to be a little slow, but we're going to. Okay, so now that I'm trying to install VMware Tools, it's not going to allow me to do it. No big deal. I will see exactly why this isn't working. Actually, what I can do is I can power off. Yes, I want to power off the VM. I can get myself out of this tailspin. This is what I refer to as a tailspin, where we've ran into a problem where when VMware Tools is not installed on the local VM, and unless I have some direct interaction with the VM itself, I can't. And the thing with VMware Tools is unless it's installed, the only way to interact with the guest VM is to literally go up there and essentially the only thing I can do is pull the power cable out of the back of the PC or the server or the laptop or whatever. Until VMware Tools is installed, I don't have that ability to interact directly with the guest VM. I have to go in and do it otherwise. So basically what I can do now is I can go power on. So all I can do is power it on and power it off. I can't do a shutdown, or I can't do a restart. There's a couple things that I can't do, so I'm going to go ahead and power these guys back on. It's going to probably tax the host that it's running on here a little bit, but my goal here is to reboot them and get them to a place where I can interact with them again. I didn't install VMware Tools and previously to this. Normally I do, it's one of the first things that I do, but I can click on here and now it's going to start to boot. Now if I come back over here to this guy, click on him, and click on this guy, I get exactly, now I'm getting a console, which is exactly what I should have gotten in the beginning. So now he's going to try to boot up. I'm going to wait. The Linux PC, I'm going to have to do a little bit of research to figure out how to actually get the VMware Tools to install. The Windows 7 side is actually really easy. As soon as it's done booting, I can manually install VMware Tools. That's actually really easy to do. But so what I'll do is I'll wait till these guys are booted up, and then I'll install VMware Tools on the Windows 7 PC. And the Linux PC should boot a little quicker because it's a lighter footprint, but we'll take care of that as the time goes on. So I'll pause the video. I'll bring you guys back in when we're ready to go. Okay, so my launch is finally here. So I'm having to, the mouse is pretty much useless at this point, so I'm having to do keyboard navigation for VMware Tools, which is pretty easy if you know how to manipulate it. So I'm waiting for VMware Tools to install on Windows 7, and we're gonna go and it's the autoplay popped up. I don't want to manipulate that right now. I'm gonna wait for the product installation to finish and go from there. So give that a couple seconds and we'll manipulate it to get to where we gotta go. This usually goes pretty quick, but sometimes it can be a little slow. So I'm going to go ahead and just exit out of the VM window there for a minute, wait for it to finish. Actually, I might be able to do it this way. And yes. Go ahead and just close out of this guy. Okay. You just double click inside there. Sometimes it's easier just to go this way. Yes, that's what I thought. So this guy here is already running. Oh, and there it bugged out on me. So that's why you got to be patient with it. So now I can just right click here and go to guest and go install VMware Tools. I can do it this way too, and say OK. This is the same pop-up I got from vCenter server. So I find it easier to do things this way. It just to me it makes more sense to do it this way. But I mean, you can do it however you'd like. But I'm just waiting for the installer to kick off. And okay, so is it still popping up? Okay, so we're gonna run. Yes. Click OK. Alright, so this guy, we're going to click Next, Typical, Next, and Install. You never really know what pop-up is going to be. It is a virtual machine running inside of a virtual environment, inside of a virtual environment. So just be patient. And as soon as you are patient, everything should work out long term. And give that a couple minutes. Once it's done being installed, then you'll have to reboot and it'll come up as Windows 7 with VMware Tools installed. You'll be able to directly interact with the VM itself. Now, this actually, it's kind of required to do this. And the reason why I say it's required to do this is because if you, there are some advanced features, especially when you get into high availability and fault tolerance and stuff like that, where you could go under the cluster configuration. We're going to spend quite a bit of time on that, where we go in and when we set it up, you can set it up high availability and fault tolerance to where it can actually be able to monitor the application running on the virtual machine. And what that'll basically allow you to do is when you go through and let's say you have an application that you want to monitor, because the VM can be monitored, and if you want the application to be monitored as well, you need to allow VMware Tools to interact with the application, because then if the application fails, you can be notified, and the high availability and fault tolerance capabilities within inside of the cluster can take over and say, okay, well, I want to remove that particular VM from being from responding to requests that application may receive. So for instance, if the IIS server decides to crash on a window on a server, you could remove that from a server that IIS has crashed and then take a look at that directly. So that's just one of the capabilities that's available to you as you're going forward here. We'll take a look at that. Obviously that'll be in the paid course. This is the free one where I'm just showing you some of the basics, and you'll be able to take a look at how that comes into play. And then from there, there's not a whole lot more to it than that. But as you can see, this process is pretty straightforward. Once you do your 3 or 4 mouse clicks and you're at that point, then once it's installed and everything's squared away, you can go ahead and click finish, reboot, and then be on your merry way. So there we are finished now. Click on finish, and yes, I want to go ahead and restart Windows. Now one thing I'll have to do when I'm in here is I'm going to go ahead and right click on the edit settings, and I'm going to click on the CD drive, and I'm going to disconnect it and go back to client device and click on OK. Because if you are mounting things to the VM to install, then things like vMotion will be almost impossible, because unless you're doing a port URI or doing some sort of like raw device mapping, having it tied to the VM directly won't allow you to vMotion. So things like that need to be understood. We're going to cover things like that down the road. So that's pretty much where we're at operationally with it. So we're going to come down to this guy. Now it's hung up at that point, but this is the desktop of the Linux computer. So as you can see, it is interactive and stuff like that, and we're good to go. So at this point, we're pretty much squared away with how this would work. Now, if I wanted to migrate this, I could, as long as I go in here and I go to edit settings. I want to just make sure that I don't have anything mapped in the CD drive, which I do not, and I actually want to change this to be client device and click on OK. There we go. Perfect. Now I'm going to go ahead and right click on here, and I'm going to go to migrate. So it should allow me to vMotion this guy to any of the other hosts that I have. And it does. So I can go migrate this to host 4, click on next. And then I can prioritize, or I have to select the network that I want to allow it to communicate with, which is good. Click next. And then it asks me if I want to just schedule it whenever I want. I could specify this VM has to be migrated right away, or I can just say, whenever you want. I'm just going to go ahead and say next. There's nothing else running on those servers, so I don't have to worry about it. And you're going to see, we're going to relocate the virtual machine right here in the lower right hand corner of your screen. It's partially done, and what you'll see is it disappear from this host and reappear up here. So let me go ahead and expand that guy out. So it's going to take a couple seconds. It's not a done in 2 seconds and you're done. Now, however, this is a virtual environment, so it's going to take a little bit longer than what you might see in production. So one of the cool things is, now that we've got this to the point that we have it, we can actually throw all these hosts into a and there it is. Now it's been vMotioned over to this guy. So now the computer, now it's sitting on this host. Now if you're not sure what host a guest VM is sitting on, just click on it. And then down here in the lower right hand corner, it'll tell you the IP address or the name of the host. And that's how you know where you're at. So I've now just vMotioned it. If I go to 4, guess what? Guess what PC's there? It wasn't there before. Now I can't vMotion from here, but I can vMotion from vCenter server. So one of the cool things about being able to do that stuff. So that's pretty much it. A lot of information to go over. I know I went through kind of quick and just to get stuff covered. One thing I like about this Ubuntu setup here is it's much lighter on resources. So here I'm at 225 megs for the install for the 32-bit OS and 6 gigs of storage, where this guy here is taking 3 gigs of storage and almost 3 gigs of hard drive. So, or I'm sorry, of RAM. So it's a much heavier footprint, but at the same point in time, it's one of those things where we're logged back in, we're good to go, and stuff like that. So that's pretty much where I wanted to leave you guys in this video. We did a vMotion. We joined the host to the vCenter server. We installed VMware Tools. Life is good. Now we're at the point now where we can start deploying more and more VMs and get into the more advanced things. So until next time, guys, thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.